Alrighty, we are live. Everybody, welcome to the Full Send Half Mast podcast. This is episode 1. My name is Jay,
I'm Tom.
and we are going to be delivering everything around the motorsports world, your one-stop platform. We got a pretty busy episode today, so we're gonna get right into it. First of all, as you know, this weekend Chase Elliott went on a snowboarding trip in Colorado and broke his shin bone, tibia. Went and did surgery that evening, 3-hour surgery, and earlier today they announced that he will be out for 6 weeks. As that says, they announced that Josh Berry will be running all ovals and Jordan Taylor will be running at COTA this weekend, or in a couple weeks from today. So my opinion is on this, I don't believe that he should be offered a medical waiver. They adjusted the standings to make the playoffs where you don't have to be in the top 30 in points. All you have to do is win a race. And they're probably going to grant him a medical waiver on an incident that wasn't racing related. And it was an option for him to do that as is on his free time. He shouldn't be granted a medical waiver. You have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that's especially with NASCAR's most popular driver. I think the whole community is going to have a hard time not giving him the waiver, even though it wasn't a racing incident, and even though that he was out doing one of his hobbies. It's going to be really hard for NASCAR to even say no for a medical waiver. And just speaking on the political side, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow if NASCAR tells him that he's not going to get that medical waiver.
Do you think he deserves one, or do you think that he's going to be granted one just out of default? Because I don't think he's deserving.
I think NASCAR needs to stay consistent with their calls. With that being said, I can't predict what they're going to say. Even race calls that they have during the week, it changes every week. It changes from racetrack to racetrack. And unfortunately, with the world that we live in today, like I said, it's going to be a really hard pill for NASCAR to swallow if they don't give him that medical waiver.
Yeah, I agree. I just would like to see something pushed beyond just name status in the sport. It won't happen though.
Absolutely.
It won't happen though.
It will
My
not
hot
happen,
take,
unfortunately.
no waiver for Elliott. All right, so next we're going to jump straight into the truck race. Interesting thing happened before. Their plane got delayed. The pit crews in Charlotte before they took off to go to Vegas, and so they were running behind. I think they did their first pit stop without their actual pit crews. It was pretty comical. See those guys rushing in there and changing and getting in front of the pit stalls. It was pretty wild. So that was some drama. Never seen that before. I don't know if you've ever seen that before. I'm pretty sure it's one of a kind to not have your pit crew to start a race.
Yeah, I think it's maybe happened one time in the past. I think it happened in New Hampshire a couple years ago. But I'm pretty sure NASCAR held the race for the pit crews to come in.
Right. All right. Well, and the one interesting thing that happened, I think Daniel Dye spun out early in stage 1. He ended up going a couple laps down because they didn't throw a caution. He was able to make it to pit road. We overcame 3 laps down by the end of stage 2, which was pretty wild in how short the truck races are. Which leads me to my next point. Most people, they've got their ideas on the truck race or on stage racing, but I believe that stage racing is overdue in the truck series. The races are way too short. I think we need to adopt a ARCA-like system in the trucks where they maybe run half the race, bring out a caution, allow them to make adjustments and pit stops, and then run the second half of the race if you're going to want to stick to some type of stage format. Because essentially now you had guys like Eckes, you had Zane Smith, Hocevar. These guys had fast trucks. They were contenders in this race, but they had to forgo the optimal race winning strategy, which ultimately cost them the race. It allowed Busch to play into favor because he's not racing for points. These guys had to race for points, had to put themselves in a position to win the stages to get the most max amount of points towards the end of the season, because the trucks playoffs are one of the hardest playoffs to get into. Smaller field, more tight packed cars and in competition with each other. So I believe that stage racing is long overdue in the truck series. You have an opinion on that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think when they first came out with the caution clocks, what was 2016? I think that was just a terrible call. And since then, they've gone to these stages. It's been adopted through Xfinity Cup, and it really just hasn't produced good racing. All it's produced is um, junked cars, no pit stop strategies, and just general frustration, not only from the fans, but I also think from the crews as well.
One thing I will add to that is, at most tracks, the stage racing for the Cup does work as long as it's a 400 to 500 mile race on a really tire aggressive track. Like this weekend in Vegas, our Xfinity and Cup race wasn't a lot of cautions. The stages really didn't play a factor in the outcome of that race. It sent like it added an extra green or not or one less green flag stop according to what it would normally be like say 10, 15 years ago when it wasn't stage racing. So I thought that was interesting strategy with the comers and goers on tires and being able to manage your tires throughout a whole run, which we'll get into here in a little bit with the Xfinity race. Um, but for truck series, short races are too short, stages are overdone. There's not even a long enough stint in each stage for a green flag stop to incorporate any strategy, and you're just
Yeah,
handicapping the guys that run for points every week, basically telling
I,
them they've got to get these points to make the playoffs, but to get these points, you're going to not put yourself in a position to beat a guy like Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, you name it, whoever decides to run in the truck race.
yeah, I agree with that, and I also think that it's a little over exaggerated in the truck series itself, just because of how short their races are. That is a great point.
Okay. Now, this brings me to my next point. I know it's pretty controversial. She's got a huge following. She's probably the most popular driver right now in NASCAR, coming up through the ranks. This weekend, I believe that she officially checked the box as being a bust in NASCAR, and she's not coming back from it. I believe we have a clip from the race on Friday that she was involved in a wreck with John Hunter Nemechek, and I believe it might have been Stuart Friesen. And that wreck was all of her own doing, and we will see that here in a second.
Yep.
See what happened right here.
Well, it started about right here, Phil, when they tried to go four wide and probably made it. Yeah. Oh, it was contact there. Max Gutierrez, and then up top, Christian Eckes is trying to get on the outside of Haley, and they stuff it four wide, does John Hunter, and this is where it all goes wrong.
John Hunter and Haley got together there.
Look at Ross.
So, in my opinion, it
Right
looks like
there
she got
into the nose
squeezed.
of John Hunter Nemechek and kept going.
But not hard contact there. You can see a little bit of
She
damage
got
to the
squeezed
nose
to
of
the
John
outside
Hunter's
in a
truck.
four-wide scenario. In my opinion, in a scenario like that, an experienced driver would have probably backed out of that scenario and maybe played it a little bit more conservative. And in that scenario, she didn't even lift. She stayed in there four wide. And a lot of she complains a lot about being involved in these quote unquote dirty driving or over aggressive driving, or however they want to say it, like racing with the ruffians of the group. But she puts herself in these situations by not running up front. If you're good, you won't be in the back. You don't wreck.
Yeah, I think it's funny that you say that because there's another female driver who was in the sport that always complained about that as well.
Yep, and we got to listen to her broadcast this race on Sunday. Another great talking point. Run up front. Run up front. If she runs up front, won't be a bust. But I officially am claiming her as a bust. We'll move on.
And
from her.
I also want to add that she drives for a very, very, very good race team. A race team that has produced championships, multiple race win seasons, and she has not been able to replicate that. And I know it's only her first year with the team. I get it, but there has been no performance out of that truck.
That's her third year in trucks, right? 3 years of
It's her third
experience?
year, but yes. Yeah, I get that as well. Absolutely. But I think
It just
that's
comes a time where results need to be
I'm on
shown.
board with you. I'm on board with
Results.
you. I think there's plenty of drivers who would be willing to have that seat and could probably do a better job. I mean, just straight up. I mean, I don't. And it's the state of the sport that we're in as well. It's just whoever brings the most money. And right now, she's got it.
Yeah, we could go on a whole podcast just on that alone. That's
Yeah, we can.
that is the problem with motorsports in the world right now in general. All right, so Busch wins the truck race, dominating third stage, checked off, about 5 seconds ahead. The other guys, like I said, bad strategy. Even Busch mentioned it in his post-race interview. He wanted to race him, but their strategy didn't align with his, and he was gone. And that comes full circle with stage racing and truck races. But that's enough said about the trucks. We're going to move on to the Xfinity race. Another pretty okay race for Vegas standards. It was a lot of passing, not much comers and goers. Really, this race was dominated by three guys. You had Chandler Smith with Colleague. I think this is his rookie season, his second start with Colleague in the Xfinity series, a car that last year won the regular season championship, and I believe also in 2021 with Allmendinger. So it's a great car, great team. I believe he's a great driver as well. Allgaier had a very competitive car. He had a pass-through penalty somewhere in stage 2, and I think that really set him back from being competitive. Nemechek dominated the first stage and most of the beginning of the second stage. After a caution came out somewhere in the middle of the second stage, he had to pit and rotated strategy, and he got back in the pack and ran about 6th to 7th all day. Coming down to the final green flag stops of the day is when the race got interesting. Austin Hill took the lead from Chandler Smith on that green flag cycle, led for about a lap. Chandler Smith's car was just unbeatable. It looked like he was going to beat the field by 10 seconds. Passed him back with about 58, 59 to go, and then pulled to about 3.5, 4 second lead for most of the run. And it wasn't until about 11, 12 laps to go in the race he got into deep lap traffic, like competitive cars that were on the tail end of the lead lap, and he was struggling to get through them. You could tell his handling was going away, and Austin Hill was just cutting that lead down ever so slightly. And it got down to about 2 to go, and it looked like Hill was gonna make it happen. He had the car. He was running a perfect line, had it painted on the white line. Chandler Smith was getting tied off of 4 every time, and coming to get the white flag, drove it in, couldn't get it to stick. Hill goes underneath him, steals the lead on the last lap, comes around, gets the dub, and heartbreak for Chandler Smith in only a second start in his rookie season with Colleague. Unbelievable race, heartbreaker for Chandler Smith, but kept me on the edge of my seat, and it was one of those examples where stage racing can be okay in races that aren't built around cautions. If the race just naturally plays out with the stages and you got your competitive cars up front, it will play out to be a good finish, and that's what we got on Saturday.
I also think that Chandler Smith learned a very valuable lesson there because I think when he took the lead with 58 laps to go, I think he pushed that car to its absolute limits that whole time. And then when he got to lap traffic with what was it, 10 laps to go,
Yeah,
something like
roughly.
that. Um, he just didn't have anything to get around those cars, and those cars are racing their own race as well. And so you can't blame them for racing their own race. But Chandler Smith just blew his car out. I mean, he was understandably so trying to win the race by getting that gap and getting a cushion to where he felt comfortable, but he might have pushed it just a little bit too hard. Ran out of tire, ran out of equipment. He did not run out of talent. He definitely proved that.
No,
Um,
he's got a lot of
but
talent.
I think he learned a very valuable lesson of saving his stuff. And I think that with that lesson learned, we're going to see Chandler Smith in a lot of victory lanes in this season.
I would love to see it. Colleague's been fast already this season. Kyle Busch was, he just didn't seem himself on Saturday, but it's a tough series to win in, especially this year. I think it's going to be a really good season down the line. The best is yet to come there.
Was Busch racing an RCR
He
Xfinity
was
car?
running for a Colleague in the Colleague All-Star
Was
car, the
Colleague.
10.
Okay.
I believe they announced that Austin Dillon, Kyle Busch, I believe Landon Castle makes some select starts, and I'm not exactly sure who else is going to be in there, but they did announce those two will be making some starts.
Gotcha.
So, all right, from here we're going to jump straight over to the Formula One race. I did not catch this race, so I'll let you take it from here.
Absolutely. So we've got some hot takes here with the F1 race. So going into this race weekend, or actually going into the the testing season of F1, Stroll did not partake. He got caught in a cycling accident, broke both of his wrists and his toe. Um, Stroll came out during practice sessions for the race weekend, went out in the race, did a phenomenal job, showed that car's potential, and finished P6. And I think that is something to be absolutely ecstatic about. He did a phenomenal job, especially on the opening laps with car control and getting around the dangers, the chaos. He did run into his teammate, but I think it was more of a racing incident deal. I didn't think anything else of it other than that. And Stroll's one of those drivers who's going to take risks as well. And he was going for those risks. He knew he had a good car. It was just exciting to see with both of his wrists be broken and his toe broken. But phenomenal job to Lance Stroll. He definitely deserves a big party this weekend. But his teammate, Fernando Alonso, absolutely phenomenal race. Yeah, he did get a lucky break with Leclerc being able to get out of the race with some engine issues. But even then, I think the true potential of that Aston Martin machine is going to be on the podium for a lot this year, and I'm really hoping that even with Alonso that they can maybe possibly get a race win. I don't know. We've seen a lot of crazy races in the past. We've got kind of a new car going into this year. Last year was the introduction of this style of F1 car, and I think that Aston Martin is definitely going in the right direction, and it's very exciting to see another team be in the top three, which is now top four. So I think that was really cool. Alonso with the podium, passing Sainz with somewhere roughly 10 laps to go. He secured the podium, P3 for Aston Martin, which is only their second podium in F1 history. The other one being Sebastian Vettel at Baku. So phenomenal race weekend for Aston Martin. They definitely get applause. Keep it up. I'd love to see it. I love watching F1. There's a lot of good stuff happening there. Another thing I want to touch on, it was big news during the offseason. Pierre Gasly moving to Alpine for the 2023 season, and he does a phenomenal job as well with securing a P9 finish with the Alpine team. I think that it just goes to show that Pierre Gasly is one of the best drivers in F1 right now, and there's really no way to actually test that because of the differences of cars. But I would guarantee that if you put Pierre Gasly in a Red Bull car with his own setup, if you put Pierre Gasly in a Mercedes car with his own setup, or you put him in a Ferrari or even an Aston Martin with his own setup and his conditions, he is a world champion. And it's really, really, really frustrating to see that because so many people see potential in him. And I think that given the right opportunity with his own rules, man, that guy would be awesome. Definitely a really cool guy, a really cool driver, really good driver, and lots of things happening for him as well. He's getting a lot of publicity from it. With Mercedes struggling for the second year in a row, it's just starting to get sad. They've since the F1 hybrid era, they've always been in first. Lewis Hamilton has dominated the F1 hybrid series, with the exception of Rosberg taking one championship. He has been unstoppable. And to see that Mercedes still hasn't tuned their car to what Lewis Hamilton wants, because he is the number one driver, is it's kind of concerning. You've got Lewis Hamilton um, making records, breaking records and all this other stuff, and Mercedes just isn't supplying him with a car. And I think even on the bigger note of that, George Russell, one of the hottest drivers in the whole paddock, cannot get that car to do anything that he wants to do. And I think that's frustrating from a fan's perspective. Personally, I'm not a Mercedes fan, but if I was a Mercedes fan, I would be very frustrated. I'm sure the team's frustrated. I'm sure the engineers are as well. And on top of that, Toto Wolff, he's got to just be not sleeping at all at night. And
Is it more of a
but
product of this new car that you think is making them
absolutely,
not
absolutely, this
fast?
absolutely. But what I do know though is that Mercedes still holds the best motor in the series. And I know that because of some of the things they've come out with, achieving, I think it was 95% thermal efficiency within their motors, which is unheard of. I mean, we're talking normal combustion motors that are being sold on the street are somewhere in the 60s to 65 range percent, and they're way up in the 95%. And I think Ferrari also came out with their numbers, which was like 93% thermal efficiency. But thermal efficiency is so important in this sport, especially with the energy systems that they have, the hybrid systems that they have. It's super important. And so, with all this information that we have with Mercedes, it's just not adding up. So, I think that they're gonna either have to make some real big overhauls in their aero department or in their chassis building department. I just don't think that it's a motor issue, and I don't think that it's a driver issue. And
Okay.
so, yeah, I would be frustrated if I was a Mercedes fan. I really would be, but I am not. So, we'll move on to Ferrari. Man, they it looks like they had a pretty strong running there in Bahrain. Um, they were in the top four pretty much all race. It's just it's funny how the tables turn. Last year Red Bull had a double DNF and unreliable, and then this year Leclerc's out with some engine troubles, and then Sainz just can't hold on to the podium and defend against Alonso. Alonso almost just went right around him with no contest. So I don't know what's really going on Ferrari, but then again, Ferrari's Ferrari.
Yeah.
They'll always find a way to uh, to not win a race. They do though have Mr. Vasseur, who came over from Alfa Romeo, their general manager or team director, I think. So now Ferrari, Miata Binotto is out. And so they do have new leadership this year. I think that maybe we can see with the next couple of upgrades that Ferrari comes out with in the coming weeks, maybe they can get stronger, maybe a little bit more reliable, and see them contending for a win. And I think lots of people would like to see Ferrari in the winner's circle moving forward.
Would it be a hot take
Um,
to say that Fernando Alonso is just not going away, or you think this was a one-off?
ooh, I don't think Fernando's going away. I think that Aston Martin is doing something right. Lots of people are saying that they've just copied the Red Bull car, like that whole debacle a couple years ago when they would copied the Mercedes car. Um, it's really hard to do that now. Everything is so strict with aero. Everything is so strict with how you can take, modify, and put on your car. And I just think that Aston Martin did a great job. Fernando Alonso did a great job communicating with Aston Martin on what he wants. And if I don't think that I don't think that Fernando's going anywhere. I think Aston Martin loves him for publicity. I think as long as Aston Martin conforms to Fernando Alonso, Fernando loves the team, and Stroll's just going to soak it in because his daddy's got the money. So
Yeah,
I think that with that being said, I think we're looking at a really long-term partnership here with Aston Martin and Fernando.
that's good. I think Fernando Alonso needs to be around for a long time. This dude is probably one of the best drivers that we have currently in the world right now. Top
Yes,
10 for sure.
absolutely. and we're pretty lucky to be able to experience it
Oh yeah,
because he's definitely a legend of the sport. Absolutely.
for sure.
And so with that being said, I'd just like to touch on Red Bull real quick. Last year, double DNF, first race of the season, they come out so strong. I mean, they are so strong in this series right now. George Russell even commented on it by saying that he predicts Red Bull's going to win every race of the year, and if they don't, it'll be a disappointment. So we might be looking at a Sebastian Vettel 2012 season where he just goes out and just dominates and gets another, you know, 60% winning percentage, and we just see another Red Bull dominance era. We might not see that. We might see Aston Martin come up. We might see Mercedes turn around, or Ferrari do something, or Miata, or I'm sorry, Mr. Vasseur coming in and moving that program around. We don't know. It's really early in the season, but what we do know, Red Bull has the best car. 1-2 finish in Bahrain. No, Max Verstappen was untouchable. Sergio Perez was pretty much unstoppable. It's just all I can say is wow. That car is on rails. And that's pretty much all I got with the F1 deal. I mean, do you have any opinions that you would like to say or questions?
The only thing is, when is the next F1 race, and where would that location be? I believe it said something like March 17th, so a week from this Sunday.
Sorry, I wasn't prepared. Yeah, so April 2nd. I'm sorry, March 19th.
March
We're in the
19th.
Saudi Arabian Grand Prix.
Okay.
Um,
So
and
March,
this was a very good race last year. This was at the height of the Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen debacle that they had last year. They were hitting each other under caution. They were trying to move positions, get in the right place. FIA was directing them. Big drama last year. Hopefully, we can get some exciting news out of that race as well.
sounds good. I admit it, must watch. Season's just starting. We're
Absolutely.
getting into the points now, so we'll see what goes from here.
Absolutely. Cool.
Alrighty.
Well, now I'd like to go into the IndyCar race. I got a couple of clips to show you guys and to break down and get a perspective from us.
Ready to go for a new racing season here in St. Peter. Grosjean launches.
Grosjean with a great jump. That's what
Okay, so this is coming down the front stretch.
Yep, green flag.
This is the
Turn
first
one, lap
lap of the
one.
race. Okay.
Below down there in the blue and white car, 3 wide through turn 1 down. So he's try the outside of turn 2. They're filing through side by side. This is where we see so many problems and contact already for a McLaren.
I think that's Rosenquist. Felix Rosenquist with more damage in the back. The track is total chaos.
Looks like Devlin DiFrancesco airborne. Simon Pagenaud I see in the wall. His teammate Elio Castro Neves.
Looks like a lot to unpack here.
Down the track is blocked. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a red flag here. And then you see there the black car. That's Santino Ferrucci into the back of Elio Castro Neves. Devlin DiFrancesco goes around. Stingray Robb swerves and hits Pagenaud. Wow, I have never seen anything like that, Townsend.
Lot to unpack on this one.
Yeah. So first thing I gotta say is wow.
Yes.
This is absolutely insane. Like
Was that
I had
DiFrancesco that went airborne? I think he wins the
yes.
airborne
Yes.
title of
Yes.
the week for sure.
Yes. I mean, here's the deal. First off, there's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to give you on information and to make your own opinion about it. I had the opportunity to work in the IndyCar series for a couple of years. I know how this race goes, and I'll tell you what, the first lap, first corner is the most intense moments in racing in St. Petersburg that I've ever had. It is a crazy corner. It is a crazy track. And honestly, with the history of this track and its races, it's surprising to me that this is the first time we've ever seen an airborne accident coming out of turn 3 like that.
Absolutely
But
wild.
what I do have to say is there are spotters around the track. They do know what they're talking about. And all I got to say about that is yikes. This is a big, big, big yikes moment. Not only for the driver, uh, Mr. Peterson, for the driver involved, Mr. DeFrancesco, and for the IndyCar series. And on top of that, you could probably say AJ Foyt Motorsports as well, or AJ Foyt Enterprises. And I'll touch on all of that. So first off, let's dive into the series a little bit. We've been racing in St. Petersburg since the mid 2000s. We've always had it where drivers can get through the first 3-4 corners pretty much unscathed. Yeah, some people kiss the wall like what you saw in the first little bit of the video, but it really never turns into anything. There was some concerns early on in the week of too many drivers. I don't think that's an issue. I think what we're facing here is a rookie going into St. Petersburg at a very pretty difficult, pretty technical track, and going in there with no knowledge. I know he's raced there before in the Indy Lights series, but let's face it, man, they got 6 cars that race in that series. They don't know what it's like. So I'm gonna give a big yikes to Mr. Peterson there. You got to be prepared. You got to know what you're coming into, and he's also leaning on his spotters a lot, and I realize that, which makes me give a big yikes to AJ Foyt Enterprises as well. They're a low budget team. They don't have a lot of resources like what some of the bigger teams have, but spotters are absolutely necessary, especially in races and turns like this, especially in this racetrack. I think that AJ Foyt dropped the ball on Mr. Peterson. Mr. Peterson dropped the ball on Mr. DeFrancesco here, and ultimately put drivers' lives at risk. I mean, there was some pictures of Mr. Peterson's car after the race, and it showed tire streaks all the way up his aero screen. Thank God for the aero screen, really. I know that some people are against it, but I'm for it. I mean, but it could have been a lot worse than what we witnessed.
Is Mr. Peterson is this his first start
This
in
is his
IndyCar?
this is his
Okay.
first start, first season. But that doesn't discount the amount of simulator time that was available to him. This doesn't discount the amount of simulators that we have now. I mean, we have iRacing, we have, and I know it's more of an arcadey game, but you got Forza, you've got Assetto Corsa. There's
Is it a lot
lots
like
of
NASCAR
avenues.
where they have manufacturer specific simulators that they can go to, like say
Yeah, so these
Chevy,
drivers are
Honda?
actually yes, so these drivers are actually allowed to go to a Chevrolet simulator or a Honda simulator to go and test these things and give them good insights on track layout mainly, to test a little bit of setup work, and kind of get the driver familiar with the track. So he has options, and
Right.
in no way saying I would do better, but I do feel like if there's drivers at risk, then there definitely needs to be a conversation about this.
Oh yeah. I'm sure he'll get a good stern talking to, and I bet he'll get it corrected in the next race.
Yes. Well, I hope so.
I hope so too. If I mean,
um,
driver safety is important. If you got someone out there that's racing a little over their head, maybe they gotta bring them down a little bit.
yeah. And I think the last thing I want to talk about with that specific incident is IndyCar as a corporation needs to address this. Why did this car get airborne? Why were we put in this predicament? Why did we put ourselves in this position where teams were questioning the amount of drivers on track, and we still allowed it to happen? I think those are great questions. I don't think that those are completely irrelevant questions. I think that it's something that IndyCar can talk about. I'm not putting blame on IndyCar. I just think that as a corporation, it's their responsibility to keep these drivers safe. And in the end, the drivers were safe, and the aero screen did its job. I will give applause to IndyCar for implementing that aero screen, but that's just a big yikes moment. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, it's not
So
safe.
we'll put that one to rest. We'll move on to the next one.
Okay.
Let me here. And so yeah, we'll move on to the next one here.
We have a car up and over.
Oof.
Kyle Kirkwood's involved. That looks like Jack Harvey as well. Renus VK in the tires. Huge accident. Yellow flag is out. That's the second. You're right. Second car airborne. Second fully airborne car. Kyle Kirkwood cleared a tabletop.
I might have stand incorrected. I think that might have been the hang time of the week right there. That was wild.
Yeah, so not as much, but still a pretty big yikes moment. I mean, this is 2 times now in a race where we got a car airborne. I don't think it's entirely impossible to have cars airborne. Where this is an Indy car. I mean, these things are upside down airplanes, anyways. But Murphy's Law, right?
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, it's one of
It's
those
gonna
things
happen.
where if it can happen, it will happen. But to have it 2 times in a race, I definitely think this needs to be revisited by IndyCar. I know that in the 2015 to 2017, there were aero wars between Chevrolet and Honda, and those cars were pretty safe. They had bumpers behind the wheels. They had bulkier air intakes, side pods. Um, I mean, everything about that car was designed around safety, but they didn't have the halo. So with the introduction of this car, they introduced the halo a year after, and so they're going in the right direction. I can't deny that. But these airborne cars at these low speed road courses is just getting crazy.
Do you think it could
I
be maybe a factor of a more competitive field? Could it be just more inexperienced drivers? Could it just because I mean they've raced this track for, like you said, a decade or more now, and we haven't
yeah
had these problems here. And
yeah
now it just
I
seems one race, double incidents.
these these drivers are getting better. These cars are getting better. More teams are investing money. There's a lot of competition. We're even grabbing drivers from Europe. We're grabbing drivers from Australia. You know, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff, or they're doing a whole bunch of stuff in that series, and they're doing a lot of good. And I think that with the clout of having a V8 Supercars legend in this series, the clout of having multiple F1 drivers in this series, F2 drivers, F3 drivers,
Having
European
NASCAR
series drivers,
drivers.
NASCAR drivers. I mean, we got that one goofball Connor Daly going back and forth, and I think
Yeah.
that's I think it's just one of those things where it's, you know, yes, the competition's getting more stiff, and it's getting um harder to win a race. I mean, it's people are grabbing everything that they can. They're just grab, 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 grab. In this case, no give. Reynes VK stuffed it into that corner as hard as he could, and paid the consequence. Jack Harvey, innocent bystander. Kyle Kirkwood, innocent bystander. There's nothing they can do, and now they're put in a bad predicament where Mr. Harvey's getting airborne.
Right. I guess that's what makes racing so great, the unpredictability.
That's right.
Sometimes you're the hammer, sometimes you're the nail.
That's right. All right, we'll put that one to rest. We'll get one more here, and we'll break it down.
Canvas control. Turn one. Look at the yellow car. There's McLaughlin on the right. They're at speed. They may come together. Oh, McLaughlin holds the lead. But there's no way I think he'll be able to hold them off on cold tires. Grosjean goes to the outside on hot tires and on the preferred line. Is it possible? No, it's not. Contact. Both of them crashing. And Award goes through. Final reward to the front.
That was the move for the race win in both of their minds.
And it came down to a simple game of chicken. Who's going to break first? Who's going to give an inch? The answer, nobody may know.
Wow, just incredible. This is why we love
Wow,
racing, right?
this is I I have a bone to pick with McLaughlin on this. A V8 supercar legend, somebody that is been there, done that. You know what I mean? And this has got to be the biggest bonehead move of his career. I mean, this is insane. I mean, this was for the race win. Roman Grosjean never won a race in IndyCar, has been a contender multiple times to win a race. Every time gets taken out by something like this. It's such a heartbreak for Roman Grosjean. And McLaughlin has won, I think, 3 times, 4 times in the IndyCar series. He is a winner. He knows what it got to take, or what it has to take to win one of these races. Roman, superior car, hotter tires going into that corner, more grip. McLaughlin, like Rinus VK, shoved it into that corner, knowing that if Roman Grosjean passed him, the race was over. He was desperate. But what did we talk about earlier with desperation with rookies going through turn 4 and lap 1?
Exactly. He just made a rookie
I
mistake completely.
it is, and I would say shame on him. But I also saw at the end of the race that Scott McLaughlin got straight out of his car, walked over to Roman Grosjean's hauler, and they hugged it out. So I do give him props for that. It's just heartbreaking for Roman as a Grosjean fan myself. As a former F1 driver, and I'm big in the F1 series. It is a heartbreak, and also a big yikes for a Team Penske driver to be doing that.
I feel like if I'm one of the competitors in IndyCar and I see that, I would lose a lot of respect for him in that moment. Like when you're racing a full season for a championship, I mean, finishing second isn't the end of the world. I mean, take the points
Yeah.
when you can get them, roll with it. I mean, even if you make that corner, you're still putting him at risk. I mean,
Yep.
it just
Absolutely.
wasn't worth it. It's not a championship move. It's not a veteran move. It's not someone with experience type move. That is desperation. Yeah,
Yep. Absolutely.
I
Desperation
could think
and
of the
wanting
old
to win that
adage
race.
of live to fight another day. Tomorrow, this wasn't your
Yes.
day. Fight next time. Like, take your points
Yep.
and run with it.
And he's lucky he races for a team like Team Penske. If it was a team like, Del Coyne or Foyt or Carpenter, they would have a really hard time replacing parts like that moving forward. I think that there would have been major repercussions if it wasn't Team Penske that he was driving for, if it was for another team. And I also think that I guess just again, he just wasn't thinking straight. And I think that as somebody who's new to the sport, that's wanting to be interested, he just became a villain to a lot of people.
Lots. Yes.
So, so we put that to rest. Or unless you have any more opinions you'd like to say, Jay.
I have nothing more on the IndyCar. I think we covered just about all the main highlights.
I've got one
Just
more.
yeah, do that and then touch on who won the race and thoughts on
Oh,
that.
absolutely, yeah. So, coming through with 4 laps to go, Pato O'Ward seemed to have this race tied up. He was pushing out front. Marcus Ericsson could not catch him, could not pass him. Pato O'Ward had plenty of push to pass. He was going to win the race, but coming out of turn 4 I'm sorry, the last corner on lap 4, he got an overboost situation in his Chevrolet motor, and it caused him to stall for a good 4 or 5 seconds. Marcus Ericsson right behind him, or he's like a second back, pulls out to the right, goes right around him. Pato O'Ward gets his motor restarted, and they go on. Marcus Ericsson wins the race because of a Chevrolet issue inhibiting O'Ward from winning the race. And I think that is the yikes moment
Oh, for
for
sure.
Chevrolet, for a manufacturer like that to have that happen with 4 laps to go. I mean, come on, man. 4 laps
Yeah,
to
this doesn't
go in the
happen in Premier
worst
Racing.
place that you can do it. This is where people use all of their push to pass. because there's no other place except for after turn 4. And so I feel for Pato Award. Yeah, he's won a couple races. Doesn't matter. It's a new season. He's trying to get those points, trying to put McLaren back on top. McLaren's got a stacked roster this year with Rosenquist, Award, and Alexander Rossi. It's his first season
I
with
saw
McLaren.
that.
And so I think we still got a lot to see out of McLaren. They were okay this weekend, but with Pato Award at the end of the race, they just had the car, they had the strategy, they were there at the end, and Chevrolet let them down.
Okay. So if that's everything you got on IndyCar, I guess we can move on to the Cup race on Sunday.
Yeah,
The Pennzoil 400 at Vegas. Really, the only way you could summarize this race is Hendrick is dominant. Just absolutely wiped the field. They ran 1, 2, 3, basically ran top 5 all day. It looked like Larson and Byron just were in a class of their own in the front. Not sure if you have a clip of that or not, but that would be something to take a look
yeah, we
at.
lost you for a second there.
Oh, okay.
Are you back?
Yep, am I back?
Yep.
We're
Yep.
all good. Okay, sweet. We had a 3 wide incident, 80 to go with Logano, Keselowski, and I believe Bush coming out of 4. I'm not sure if we have a clip or not of that.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, we'll run that clip right quick. We can make an opinion or judgment call on this one.
All right.
Ahead on this one, they're all pretty darn good.
Gonna get tight.
Whoa! Oh! Caution, caution.
Logano slides to the grass down the front straightaway as caution waves. Sure did. He's going to be frustrated with that. He had the run, he has the position, but the hardest thing is to be that 3-wide situation that Keselowski was in. Just running out of real estate. Logano come down. I'm going to say he didn't stay on that wall. I don't want to put blame on him. That's 3 cars going for the same.
All I can say about that is room got taken by all 3 of them. We're coming to 80 to go, final stage. It's battle within the top 10. I mean, I don't know who you really put the blame on there. I mean, Logano was outside committed. He was already full throttle. I don't think you can back out of the gas and still not hit the wall. You might hit the wall even
Yeah.
harder.
Yeah,
And
I think that all 3 of them were committed.
yeah,
I think that with the
Keselowski
aero
did.
package that they have,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
just
There's
just
there was
impossible.
nothing you could do about it. Nothing. Keselowski did come a little wide, but I mean, that's just a product of these cars. You
Yeah.
just tough situation. At that moment with 85 to go, I believe it was, that's when it looked like the race was going to be changed for a negative for Hendrick. It looked like that the reign of dominance was going to end because they came in to make a pit stop. This was shortly after stage 3's start. I think they were only 15, 20 laps into that final stint. They all had to pit at least one more time in stage 3 anyway, but this was before their fuel window. So this was kind of one of those gamble calls. Maybe people can jump the field and get track position, but most of them decided to come down and get tires, although Hamlin did not. Hamlin stayed out on, or took 2 tires when everybody else took 4, and
That's
he was
right.
able to maintain the lead for a few laps. And this was the moment that changed the race. I believe it was Alex Bowman and Kyle Larson, Byron's teammates. They both leaped him during that pit stop sequence. Byron's crew had a slow stop, end up shuffling him back to 5th in the running order, or maybe it was 4th. But at this point, it basically put the race in the hands of either Bowman or Larson. It was a matter of who could get the clean air ahead of Hamlin on 2 tires, and Hamlin really did the best he could blocking. He took the air off of them going into the entrance on 1 and 2 where you want to run the bottom, and he made it real wide off of 4. Nobody could get a run, and eventually it lined out where Larson was able to get by him on the outside, and he kind of took off at that point. He set sail. I think he was up like 3 seconds before the pit stop, came out of the pit stop. It kind of leveled out, maybe 4 seconds ahead of Byron, who eventually got past Hamlin after the next cycle. And so we were sitting with about 5 to go. It looked like the race was over. Larson's got the lead, 4 seconds ahead. Maybe, I think Byron might have closed it down about 2 seconds with about 5 to go, but still too far out to make a run at Larson. Byron's running 2nd, Hamlin 3rd. Truex was moving up on Hamlin for 3rd, running 4th, and then Bowman 5th. And then Almirola I don't know what exactly happened, if he just got up too high, got loose, got in the wall, and went around, but they called a caution pretty quick. They decision time for all the top runners. At this point, there was only one option. It was to get 2 tires. I guess the risky gamble option, Vegas style, was to stay out on 4 or stay out on your old tires. Truex took that option. He really had no other way to win that race because starting on the front row on that restart was going to be crucial. It was going to be hard to win it from second or third row. He stays out on old tires. Everybody behind him comes in for 2. And Byron, actually, his crew made up for their mistake on that first pit stop right after the Logano incident. He was able to leap Larson, was able to get the outside line on Truex on the restart, and Larson's crew just was a little slower. And he started inside behind Truex, which basically eliminated him from winning the race. Truex drove valiantly into turn 1 and 2. Coming off of 2, he just could not get back on the gas. He washed up. Byron was able to drag him down the back. Truex stuck with him a little bit, but going through 3 and 4, you could just tell those old tires were not going to stick to the track, and Byron went by him on the outside, checked out, won the race, and somehow out of all of that, we still got a Hendrick 1-2-3 with Byron, Larson, Bowman, and captured the 1-2-3 just dominant performance.
Yeah, it was. Hendrick came out in qualifying. Well, Penske came out in qualifying really fast, and we thought that Penske was just going to be one of those another 2-mile track dominance again. But Hendrick really showed up during race day and pulled it off. They did a great job.
Yeah, it was phenomenal strategy. I just haven't seen a race with this gen of car where you saw one team just absolutely dominate. I don't think all of last year, I can't think back on a race where one team just put it all together and dominated. And
Yeah.
so I feel like Hendrick's got it figured out. Penske looked fast in the beginning of the weekend. I believe I had Blaney and Logano on my fantasy lineup, and that turned out to be a complete failure.
Yeah,
think
I
Logano
had Blaney.
entered. Yeah, exactly. Logano entered second in points, leaves only
Yeah.
gaining 1, not one single stage point. And I mean, what is up with Blaney this year? Every race so
I don't
far,
know.
he's had just a car that was terrible or destroyed, and somehow finds a way to get that thing in the top 10 by the end of the race. Like
He's an animal.
this guy can drive anything. I swear, you put him
Yeah.
out there in a UPS truck, he's gonna put it in the front.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean,
Full
this
on
guy is
dump
unreal.
truck out there, and he's putting it in the top 10. Absolutely.
Oh man, it's just unreal what this guy can do. Like the Daytona 500, this car was destroyed. I would have packed that thing up, told the boys we're going home, cracked a cold one, and just partied in the pits all night and try again next year. But nope, they put that thing back together, sent her back out, and I think he finished 8th with that destroyed race car. Just
Yep.
I don't know what's going on with Penske. I don't think it's just necessarily a Penske thing. I think it's a Ford thing in general. They just got the new noses this year approved, and I don't know if that has anything to do with it. I don't know if Chevy is just that much more ahead. I don't know. Ford's just been really bad so far to start this year.
Yeah, hopefully they can turn it around. We're seeing a lot of strength out of Chevrolet. We're seeing not really a lot out of Toyota either. Where historically they've been pretty good. But yeah, Chevrolet's dominating right now.
Yeah, I think I saw a stat where it was the first time since 2010 that Chevy's won the first 3 races of the season. I could be incorrect on that, but if that's true, that's just wild. That
Yeah.
just shows that Chevy's here and they're here to stay.
Absolutely.
Another thing that
Absolutely.
I wanted to mention about this race is what was up with Noah Gregson's tack? Like, did they just not program that thing right? This man's got a speeding penalty, comes back out. They give him the penalty, so he has to make a pass through. Gets another speeding penalty on his pass through. Oh man,
yeah. That's a rookie data engineer right there.
that is bad. And then gets another one late in the race. Like, it was so bad at one point where they were announcing speeding penalty. I think Mike Joy even said it in the booth. He's like, man, there it is again. Just Here's Gregson with another speeding penalty. I'm like, how many can this guy get? Like, this is crazy. Can you imagine showing up to a race and just everything falls apart from the most simple thing, speeding in pit road? Just set the tack right or anything. Like, that's wild. It's wild to me. I thought that was entertaining. So after this race, we're going to take a look at the points. Right now, the top 5 in points are Ross Chastain's the points leader with
When
129.
it comes to
Alex Bowman's 3 points back. In second, Harvick is third, and he is got 108. So I believe that is 21 back. And then Suarez is at 104, and Truex is at 100. They're the top 5 in points, and they're the only ones to crest the 100-point mark. A notable is Corey LaJoie right now sitting 18th, and he is only 1 point back from the cut line. He has been having a phenomenal year. I don't think I've seen him have one bad race yet.
Yep, and the best part about it is we still have Atlanta coming up where he showed his true strength last year, and I really do hope that he gets put in another position where he can go and win a race without a driver squeezing him into the wall on the final lap.
Yes. And we all know who that was. And then some notables outside the top 30 in points. Not that the top 30 matters, because all you got to do is win a race to get in anyway, as long as there isn't more than 16 winners. We got Priest, Briscoe, and Reddick, which Reddick and Briscoe last year were in the final 8 drivers of the playoffs. So that's kind of stunning that they've been this bad. I remember Fontana, Briscoe was like 30th place, couldn't even make a lap time. Like, I barely think
Yeah.
he was making minimum speed. This week, non-existent. I don't even think they even mentioned him one time. And then Reddick, obviously, the DNFs back-to-back in the last 2 races. And then this week, it looked like he was going to be fast. He was running faster lap times in the back, running through the field. And it's like when he got to about 10th or 11th, stalemate. Like, just could not go up any further. It's like he hit equal cars as him, or
Yeah, I think as soon as he got loose in turn 3 and 4 with 12 laps to go, he was running 6th. As soon as he got loose and smacked the wall a little bit, it was over.
it was
But
over.
up until that point, though, that he was the fastest car on track, and he was ripping the top side. And I think that 23XL is just learning his driving style. I think in time that the engineers over at 23XL, they're gonna fine tune what he wants with these races moving forward, and they're gonna give him something that's going to be so astronomically competitive, so fast that it's gonna be a Cole Pern, Martin Truex Jr. all over again.
You sure hope so for him, because, I mean, looking back at what Kyle Busch did in his car with his team last
Yep.
week,
Yep.
it's got to be pretty disheartening to see you sitting in the garage and watching your old team go into victory lane and celebrate. I mean,
Absolutely.
That's
That's
gotta
a big.
be-
That's gut wrenching.
that's got to be tough.
Unless he's getting paid a lot of money, which in
Oh,
that
I'm
part
sure
I would
that's
say
the main driving
whatever.
factor. That's the only factor I could see is he got a huge pay raise to go to 2311. There's just, I mean, what he had going there at Richard Childress and what they were just beginning to do, that was
Yeah.
just that's it.
And then
Money is the only
I
thing I
think
could think of.
that's. I think also with their engineering team carrying Bubba to a win, and then now you have a Reddick in there as well as Kurt Busch having a leadership role in this company. I think it's just a matter of time before 23XL becomes the next Joe Gibbs. I really do.
I agree. I mean, look at Bubba Wallace this weekend. I mean, he ran great all day. He was a top 7 car all day. So
Yeah.
we'll see where they go from here. I guess next we'll move into predictions and previews of races this weekend. Currently, there's no Formula One, no IndyCar. SRX doesn't start for a few more months. No trucks this weekend, so it's just Xfinity and Cup Series. Xfinity predictions, I think we're going to see a little bit of what we saw last week. I think the best teams are going to continue to dominate. It's solely right now, it's Allgaier 17, Austin Hill is on a roll. I believe the colleague cars are going to be fast again. And I mean, that pretty much is the field right now. There's about 4 cars. I bet Nemechek will be fast. He was pretty
Yeah.
fast in Vegas. He just got off strategy and never recovered. So I think that's kind of who we're looking at as championship favorites right now is Smith, Allgaier, Hill, and Nemechek. I think those are your 4 to look
Yeah,
at for this weekend as well.
I want to see Chandler Smith get the job done.
I think
I really
he's
do.
gonna once he wins one, I think he's gonna knock them all off. I mean, look what
Yep.
he did in the Truck Series.
Yep.
He was dominating. I think it's just a matter of time before he gets it figured out, and he's just gonna shock the world.
Absolutely.
For the Cup race this weekend, I know I just bagged on him and said Ford has got to get something figured out to run slow, but I've got Ford this weekend. I think Ford's going to win. They're going to snap the Chevy streak. I think it's going to be someone from SHR, whether it's Priest, Briscoe. I mean, you can't underestimate Harvick at Phoenix. This guy has won there more times than I think they've ever raced there. This dude's just insane there. I mean, you could just put him on your top 10 list and he'll get it done every time there at Phoenix. So I think Harvick's going to be a factor. It'd be good to see him win, especially considering this is last year and he's going to run out of opportunities. The further into the season he doesn't win, it's going to be like, is he ever going to win again? So I feel like
Yep.
what's a better time than now? And he's
I think
currently sitting third in points. He's been up front just about every race. I think this is the week Ford puts it together and I think Harvick goes to victory lane.
Yep. I'm also going to go blue oval as well. And I think, though, that I think Blaney's going to get the win. I think that because they were so strong during championship week last year, they learned something. They might have put prototype parts on. I highly doubt it. NASCAR's really cracking down on that kind of stuff. But I think that Penske has found a really good rhythm with Ryan Blaney and Joey Logano at Phoenix. And that they're just going to take that momentum that they had at Phoenix last year and put it into this race this weekend. And I think Blaney's going to get it done.
Okay. That would break, what is it, a 1-year winless streak for Blaney? So this will be.
Yeah, it's over a year now, isn't it?
I
He didn't win
mean,
last year.
yeah, he didn't win at all last year.
Yeah.
Points races, that is. And then, I mean, I
Right,
think the
right.
last
Points
win he
races.
had was maybe Michigan 2021. And
Yeah.
he won the back-to-back. Or maybe it was Daytona, or Michigan, Daytona, or Daytona, then Michigan. One or the other. But yeah, he's been a while.
Yep.
So that will be much needed. He's very far back in points too, as it appears. And if he can drive those dump trucks to the top 10 the last few weeks, I think he can take a good car at a track that they're good at to a victory.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, any dark horses, anything like that you want to watch this weekend? Someone that might be off the radar a little bit.
I would like to just have Stuart Haas as the dark horse this weekend. Just in general, as an organization, they've been struggling. It's been no secret they've been struggling the past couple of years. Yeah, they've won a race here and there, and Briscoe's really been kind of leading the charge. I mean, yeah, Harvick got 2 wins last year, but Briscoe was really the one who was up there in front, getting that sponsorship viewing time, getting that team very useful information, very useful data, and they have nothing to show for it this year. And I think that just in general, Stuart Haas and with Ford and the alliances that they have there, Stuart Haas, just as a general, is going to be a dark horse for Phoenix.
Okay. I think my dark horse is going to come out of the RFK stable. I think you got to keep an eye out for Keselowski. He's been fast, and like I said, Ford's going to dominate this weekend. I think this is their weekend to bounce back and prove everybody wrong. Watch out for Keselowski.
Man, I'd love to see that.
That would be wild. That'd be wild. All right. Unless you got any other closing thoughts or anything to
Yeah,
that
so
fact.
I would like to start the biggest bonehead move of the week.
Let's do it.
And I think that the contender is definitely McLaughlin in the IndyCar race, pushing Romain Grosjean into the turn 5 barriers, completely eliminating his chance of winning that race. Like we said earlier, he was on cold tires, just came out of the pits. Romain Grosjean was already up to speed, full heat in the tires. He was going to win that race, and McLaughlin just took that away from him. So that would be my candidate.
I'm taking that one too. I think a lot of respect has been lost for McLaughlin, and it'll be interesting to see where they go from here. Whether he
Yep.
can. It's going to take a lot longer to mend it back than it does to destroy it, so we'll see where they
Yep,
go from here.
absolutely. And then we've
Alright.
got the radioactive of the week.
Yes, the radioactive of the week. So in the comments, if you can guess which driver said this quote, we'll give you a shout out in the next live stream. Just gotta pull it up here. I know I have it in my notes somewhere. Unless you have it pulled up and you can read it off.
Yeah. All right. Here it is. Blank blank measuring contest for no blank reason.
You guess the driver in the comments section. You get a shout out at the beginning of episode 2. So, with that being said, that will conclude episode 1 of the Full Send Half Mast podcast. Currently, we're planning on doing this tentatively every Tuesday night, subject to change, so stay updated on our channel with any upcoming scheduled live streams. I will also post on the YouTube channel if anything changes or put polls or anything like that. So thank you very much for watching and stay tuned for future episodes. But for now, I'm going to send it off. I'm Jay.
Tom.
And this has been the Full Send Half Mast Podcast episode 1.